Hello, I'm Roger Webb and welcome to my workshop. Today's video I'm going to introduce you into the very beginning of wood turning with a lathe. This is a fairly standard basic bench lathe. Now it's made up of a headstock, and down here is the motor, and it's a belt drive. There are three different pulleys in here, which I'll take you around the back and show you in a minute. We have a variable speed control here. So the headstock, and we have, this is the drive spur here. There's several different mechanisms of holding and driving, turning the workpiece, and I'll show you those in a minute. This is the tailstock, so this is the support for the other end. And this is the tool rest, which is adjustable, up, down, round and round. And so this is what you rest a chisel. I just got a pretty standard chisel. Rest a chisel on, and you move along the tool rest here, present it to the workpiece to machine some of the wood away. If you notice the shape of this, it's a comfortable sort of shape to put your finger in here like this and hold it. Okay, it sort of gives you a register to put your hand in here. Never ever put it up on here, you're going to start losing figures. So that's how to use that. So we're at the back of the lathe now, and inside here, so we'll just slacken this off, put it up there out the way. So inside here we have the drive belt, which goes down to the motor down there, and there's a tightening mechanism down here that you can slacken this to be able to change the speeds of the belt. So you've got three speeds: low, medium and high. It's on low at the moment because we're going to put a fair sized lump of wood in there, and so we want it spinning relatively slowly. So we have low, medium and high. The slowest speed is 650 RPM and the highest speed is 3800 RPM. Now when you go into the back of this, be very careful of this little serrated, or looks like a little bit of a gear wheel here. This is the pickup for the DROs, or the digital outputs on the little window out here. You can break this very easily. Okay, so it's what they call the Hall effect pickup. So and the electronic pack is in here, so just be careful of that. Some lathes have it, some do not. I prefer to have a lathe that tells you what the RPM is, so you know exactly what the lathe is doing. And I don't believe in not knowing what the RPM is. What I have here is a selection of some of the chisels that I use on both of my lathes. This is for this lathe, quite a large gouge. Okay, you can see the shape of it there. That's about, let me see, probably getting off 3/4 of an inch, I think. Just to give you, it could be regarded as a roughing tool. Now for the large lathe, this is a roughing tool. As you can see, it's quite a large tool for removing a large amount of material. Now, this is an intermediate gouge. I use this one a lot on this lathe. And this is a small. So this is a detail gouge. It's a very small one. What have we got here? Right, this is a finishing tool. You can see it's a very small, commonly known as a scraper. And this is another detailing tool. Let me see. Now this one is a parting off tool. You actually use it edgeways, okay, to part bits of material off. Now this one is a very special tool. This is called a skew. Now I would not advise first time users to use this one. I'll show you a couple of things that you can start to use it with, but you've got to be very careful. You should be be sort of fairly proficient of what you, or have some knowledge of the lathe and experience before you start using this, really. Get into trouble with this one pretty quick. Let's see what else we got here. So a spindle gouge, pretty standard size spindle gouge. And this is my favorite tool. Notice the very long handle. This is really for the bigger lathe, but I use it on this one as well. And this is a bowl gouge. Now I use a bowl gouge for most things. Now 50 years ago or more, when my grandfather started teaching me how to use the lathe, he said to me, "Boy, you use whatever tool you have in your arsenal to get the job done." Now, it's not really until sort of later life, I suppose, I understood really what he meant. What he meant was that, well, sometimes you use a tool that's not strictly the right tool or the textbook tool to be using to do a particular job on a lathe. But you sort of get used to using the tools and the ability of those tools yourself, and only you can determine what is the right tool to use to do a particular job yourself. So like I say, I use a bowl gouge for most turn-in jobs. I feel very comfortable using this tool. And I also sometimes I have been known to use a parting off tool to hollow out a bowl if it's a very hard piece of wood, because there's no flex in this, and it's a small cutting area, so you don't tend to dig in. Anyway, I'm talking about things now that you'll learn yourself later on down the track. Okay, now we're going to talk about work holding. Now what that simply means is the tools then that you have in the lathe that holds on to the material. So it's tool holding or work holding. Now this particular one, these are what we're going to use. This is a spur drive, so it's a little point here, and there's like teeth here that dig into the wood that'll hold it and drive it. So we have this on the driving end here, and then this one has got a bearing and a spike or a point, and that holds the other end of the material. Another method is a faceplate that screws onto here. Well, I can't put it on there now, but and you can actually screw it with wood screws into your material. That's probably better for a much heavier piece of wood or larger diameter piece of wood. You'd use this rather than this method. Another method is your scroll chuck with 4 jaws. Now this particular one is for holding like a rim of a bowl, but you can take these segments off, and there's different segments that you can put on to hold it, different shapes of wood, whether it's an internal tenon, such as this internal tenon, so these go inside the wood and splay out and hang on to it and drive it. There's these general purpose segments that hold onto the piece of wood. But there's also another method, and that is, I think it's called a wormwood screw. It's like a giant screw. Now this gets held inside in the jaws in there like that, and you do it up. So you've got to drill a hole in the piece of wood and then screw the piece of wood onto here. That holds it pretty firm. I only use that method occasionally. So there's several different ways of holding or work holding on a lathe. When you purchase your lathe, whoever you purchase, it's not worth me trying to describe to you who to go and buy your lathe from, because I am speaking to over 150 different countries. So it's up to you to go and do your own research and find a stockist that can sell you the product, a reasonable product like this, and sell you the chisels and the chucks. Now the chucks should come in a case similar to this if they're good, well made. You can have a dig around on the internet and find out what well made means. Reliable equipment. Obviously, if you buy cheap off eBay, well, I don't know how long it's going to last. It could last just 5 minutes. I would go to a reputable company or a reputable stockist who supplies this type of tooling for anything that you buy. Now, before we go any further, we need to have a word about shop safety. Now, these aren't just ordinary glasses. These are acrylic. They have a lens for distance at the top and a lens at the bottom for a meter in. So these are the standard type of safety glasses. I can't wear them because they don't have the right lenses for me. And this is why I have larger type lenses too, to protect my eyes. Certainly when using a wood lathe, you must wear a face shield. Okay? Because these pieces of wood, if you look back in some of my videos, you'll see that even I have had pieces of wood. It's very unpredictable wood. There could be a knot somewhere in there when you're trying to machine it that your tool catches. It'll pull it straight out of the chuck or out of the centers, and sometimes it can come at you. So this is a must. You must wear the right gear. And of course, fine dust particles, you must wear a mask. So always keep safety in mind whatever you do, okay, especially in workshop conditions, whether you're using it as a hobby or as a profession. Safety first. Okay, spur drive. So you can see it's got a point and some teeth faced in a certain direction, so the lathe drives in that direction, so it actually makes this bite in deeper. So, and you notice this a taper here, so that's called a Morse taper, and that goes into a taper inside the shaft in there, and it holds it tight. It holds it really tight. So okay, so what we're going to do now is find the center of this material. And to do that, we simply get a straight edge and go from corner to corner so. Turn it corner to corner. Same the other end. And just simply you get a hammer, put the point of that on there and go give it a couple of taps. Now then, all we do now is put that into the shaft, then bring the tailstock up. There we go, nice and tight. So then you set the tool rest about 1/4 of an inch, which is about 5 or 6 mil out from the piece of wood. Always turn your piece of wood around so it you know it's not going to hit the tool rest. And this should be about just sight it about 1/4 of an inch down below the center height of the centers of the lathe. Then I'll show you why that is. So when you get your chisel, when you present the chisel to the material, the cutting surface there is about on center height. It ends up on being about center height of the actual lathe. That's the ideal situation. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start roughing this out, and we're going to make a round cylinder, and then we're going to use some of the other tools here, and I'll show you what sort of shapes that they can make, or what their job would be. So the first thing we're going to do is position this tool rest at this end, so we can start on this end and work our way up towards the headstock. And put our face shield on, our mask, and the first tool we're going to use is the intermediate gouge, which could be regarded with this size lathe as a roughing tool. So let me see. Here we go, and we're going to set it on the low setting. We'll speed it up a little bit as we go. So here we go. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm starting on this edge and then going in and working my way out. This I find is the best way of starting off anyway, and roughing it down. So here we go. I'll speed it up a little bit more because I think it'll take a bit more speed. That's 800 RPM there. Okay, so we'll just move the tool rest up. And we will continue. what I'm doing now, I'm just taking the tips off and I'm just moving this in. And off we go again. You can actually plunge with this as well. See, plunging. Let's have a look. Just a little bit more, and we should have a nice round cylinder. Okay, I'm going to switch now to the gouge. Now, this is the first way I would suggest that you operate with the gouge, very, very gently. It's a fairly flat tool, so it's going to give you a flat surface. Present the gouge to the material. So as you can see, that gives a very, very nice smooth surface finish with the gouge, but be very careful using it. So now we're going to move the, let's alter that a little bit, move the tool rest up here a little, and we will continue now with this half of the cylinder, and then we'll start using some of the other tools. So here we go. I'm just going to speed the lathe up a little bit to about 1200. There you are, that's about 1200. I can tell by the sound of the lathe and the sound of the way that it's cutting whether I can speed it up a little bit. That'll come to you in with practice. You can see that the shavings are coming off very much smaller because it's turning faster. You can see it's a little bit uneven, so then you get your skew, being very careful with the skew. And there we have a very nice, clean-ish cylinder to work with. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this up slightly. I think the camera's fine there where it is. And this is uneven here at the moment. So what I'm going to do is, now you can use several different tools. You can either use spindle gouge, such as this to machine this. But I'm going to show you something with the pattern off tool, because the pattern off tool can be used for many different jobs, and this is one of them. I'll show you this now. So you get the pattern off tool and you present it at a high angle like this. And gently push in. And that's another way to face something off, just roughly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you with some of the individual tools now, some of the different types of cuts. And we're going to make a shaped piece on here. It could be, a corner of a bed. It could be a leg of a chair. It could be anything you want it to be. So the first tool that we're going to use now is a standard spindle gouge. Okay, so we're going to use about 1200 RPM. Might take it a little further actually. So let's have a little look. It's 1300. Lathe is very stable, there's nothing out of balance, so that's good to go. So here we are. So you just present the cutting edge and turn it clockwise and anti-clockwise. You see, you get a nice round groove. And we could try. This is a detailing gouge, so we're going to try a smaller one. Little detailed round. Let me see. Okay, so this is a detailed V. So we're going to put a couple little grooves here. Okay, and maybe there as well. And let's see, we're going to revert back to the standard spindle gouge again and just round this on the top. Just follow it down. A bit of a round, so you've taken most of the material away now, so then you come along with your skew and round it off. Gives a nice rounded edge. Okay, so what we will do now is take our intermediate gouge, and we're going to take some material out here. Let me see. Here's my bowl gouge. I think and this is my favourite tool. You can do some fine detail work with this as well. See, even though it's a big tool, you can do some really fine detail work with it. Little undercut there. Okay, let's stop that and have a look. So you can see now that this material actually isn't the best for wood turning for a, sort of a finish, but it's it's cheap, and I had it on hand here to use. So you can see now that you can get some fine detail in wood, and you can probably recognize some of the markings that we're making now that professionals use. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go a little bit more dramatic down this end. Okay, bowl gauge now. Speed it up a little further. So give us some more dramatic material movement now. So notice I rolled it over. I'm using the side edge now as a cutting edge, as well as the point, so you push in. So you can notice a bit of a shape coming now. It looks a bit like a bed knob. That's quite a pleasing shape there. So they were coming with the skew, being very careful. But don't take the point right down in there. Okay, so we'll move further down now, and we'll come to this intermediate gauge. Can we get our detailer? I can find him. Where is he? There he is. So actually I flaked a bit off the sidewall there, but it doesn't matter, I just folded it down and until we came good again. Detail gauge. Finish that off. I will stop it and move further down. So you can see how the piece is building now. I'll go to my bowl gauge, I think. Oh, spindle gauge, where is it? Spindle gauge now. The grass is more grey, the hedgerows more bare. Actually, I'm going to leave that as it is. That's okay. Okay, so that was an introduction to wood turning. I say again, it's not necessary for you to have a large professional type lathe, and spend 4,000 or 5,000 on it. You can get yourself a good bench lathe, fairly reasonable, and you should be able to buy the chisels from the same supplier that supplies you the lathe, as well as chucks, and anything that you might need. I do advise you to get if you get a bench lathe, get one with a DRO, which is digital readout. You want to know exactly how fast your lathe is going. You want a variable speed, and you want at least 3 different speeds that you can choose from, so you can, you know, sort of really have a variety, and you can do a lot more work with them. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today. This is the start of a series that I intend to be doing, starting right from the very start, basic wood turning, and we will progress on through to doing some quite difficult jobs, wood turning bowls and vases and some odd pieces of wood. So if you've liked this video, please press like and subscribe to my channel, and forward it on to your friends, because that's how the channel grows. So don't forget, I have 2 channels now. You can get to my second channel. There's a link in the banner at the top of my homepage on YouTube, my YouTube homepage. Also there's a link down on your right hand side down there, and below that is a link to Con O'Neill music as well. Some of the music I do use in my videos now. There you will find, on both my channels, you will find videos on wood turning, CNC routing, shop jobs that I do around here, lasers, milling, and of course the programs that operate the CNC machines. So thank you for dropping in, and I hope to see you again fairly soon. So it's bye for now.